President Trump right now in the Oval Office. I'm sounding like a newscaster, but that's what's happening. And yeah, as always, you never know what you're gonna get with Trump. It could be super friendly. It could be super unfriendly. And I think, and I worry that it might be the latter today. Yeah, Trump has been talking in recent days about how it's time to end this, uh, because this was always about how much time it's going to take rather than actual goals of a war. And yeah, will Trump force a ceasefire on Netanyahu? That is the main question that we hope to find out. Yes, Ram mentioned something in the chat that actually I just saw in the news as well, that Trump had Netanyahu call the Prime Minister of Qatar and apologize for attempting to kill the terrorists that the Prime Minister of Qatar hosts so kindly in his country. Welcome to the reality show. I'm joined by Michael Kaufman, Marco, Richard. Marco, your first thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, my first thoughts and that this deal, I mean, it's a 21 points deal, and they are 1 point more rotten than the next, to be honest. And to me, I detect the stench of Tony Blair's hand in it. If anything else, on the bit where one of the points is granting Hamas people amnesty if they recognize, if they sign a piece of paper and say they're now free loving, peaceful people who will never hate a Jew ever again. I mean, this is just the mother of all compromises. It's a bodge. It's a pig's dinner, which is made to look like a compromise for a peaceful future. There's not going to be a peaceful future with this kind of stuff. You cannot appease a bunch of terrorists. And one of the most laughable bits is that they effectively you presented Hamas with the 21 points, which include the dismantling Hamas war machines and dismantling Hamas itself. I mean, what are the chances that they will accept? And anyway, they just need to change name, rebrand. Tony Blair is a great guy in terms of rebranding stuff. So, new Hamas? Well, it's not Hamas, is it?
Right, okay.
I just wanted to say, yeah, if Tony Blair, he is great at rebranding stuff, and if he needs some help, he's be best buddies with Peter Mandelson, who I heard is open to new opportunities at the moment.
Yeah, he's looking for a new ambassadorial position, and I think Gaza might be the one, mightn't it? Yeah, I mean the 21 points are vague and flabby, and some of it is TBC, and all the devil's in the detail, and a lot of it is allows contradiction to exist because it's vague. So it can promise one thing to one side, one to the other. It can hide it in fudge and delay and procrastination, and essentially it can pretend that you can get Jew-hating terrorists to behave decently because blank out to quote Ayn Rand. There's no reason why they would suddenly change their spots, and I think that's what's going on here. I mean, I think the shouldn't the Qatari leader be apologising to Netanyahu and the Israelis for hosting Al Jazeera and all their anti-Jewish propaganda for every day, and for hosting the very people who Israel was trying to take out in the first place and putting them up in luxury accommodation, all the rest of it. I mean, that is sickening to say the least. And of course, that's what happens every time, isn't it? It's Israel that's made to come to the table and to beg, and it's Hamas who's given largely what they want in many ways, or at least too much of what they want, including the ludicrous release of lots of Palestinian prisoners in return for innocent hostages taken from kibbutzes and their homes in Israel on October the 7th, equating the two by implication, and that in itself is disgusting.
Yeah, I should say I forgot to point this out in my intro, but this might be a different type of show because in a few minutes, Netanyahu and Trump are scheduled to speak to the press, and if that happens, we will live stream at least the beginning of it and pause when we have things to say, and then you will see it in a delay as we go along. Michael, an American friend was here in London a week ago, and he brought up the U.S. and Israel have this official policy of we do not negotiate with terrorists, and I told him, when was the last time you heard any leader of the U.S.? I mean, I hear it when I see shows like television shows about terrorism that they have this stance, but nobody pretends that anymore because all we do when terrorists attack is negotiate with them and try to get them to kind of stop being as terroristy as they are. That seems to be the way the West fights against terrorism nowadays. And once you open that door to negotiation, you've already lost.
Yeah, well, the first thing I think is that I'm sure that Obama was on the phone to the delightful Pakistanis apologizing for attacking bin Laden's compound in the middle of Pakistan when they took out bin Laden. This world view on this, and frankly, the lack of any person with a brain, at least big speaker that I've heard, saying this is the most absurd thing ever. People declare that they want to annihilate your state. They take, quote, safe haven in an enemy state. You go out and you try to kill them in the enemy state. It was okay to do with bin Laden. And by the way, one of the most feckless, weakest, morally bankrupt presidents that we've had in America. And if you just look at Obama's policies, talk about negotiating with terrorists, it is shocking that he actually did it, but he did do it. And by the way, he never even warned the Pakistanis that he was coming, even though they were, quote, our American allies, because nobody could trust Pakistan. Why could nobody trust Pakistan? It's kind of a chicken and the egg. They were harboring the worst criminal in the entire planet, the worst terrorist everywhere. So if you had any doubts about Pakistan's validity and moral standing before you found out that in fact bin Laden was staying there happily in his compound with his 17 wives and his entire family, then, not in the cave that we were all led to believe that he was living in a cave and dying of kidney failure, which was the baloney story we were all told so we could feel better that we, America, had actually done something after 9/11. It is truly, the double standard is ridiculous. And of course, it all goes back to the double standard as soon as Israel be very happy to give back any land that they had. But the fact is, Israel actually did own the land from history and memoriam and even prehistory. But when the Americans give back the land to the Native American Indians, I mean, the whole thing is absolutely doublespeak and double talk and hypocrisy. And it is despicable that with all the talking heads that we have, there's some simple, basic history that doesn't get talked about. As far as Qatar is a disgrace. I mean, Qatar is laughing all the way to the bank. This is basically a country that is a family, as far as I understand. It's a tribe of a family, extended family. It is very aristocratic. You're in the tribe or you're not in the tribe. You're either a slave or you're or part of the family. And what it does is it funds some of the worst terrorism around. I think they're actually in a race with Iran to see who funds more worldwide terrorism. And they love to talk out of both sides of their mouth. And they love this absurd position of being the go-betweens between a terrorist organization and the West, including Trump. And I like Trump in general. This behavior between him and Witkoff and this utter stupidity over and over again. The last thing I'll say is, as far as I'm aware, Hamas is not involved in any of these negotiations. And once again, I think don't forget, we've been through this same circus multiple times before with Donald Trump, where we've had all these trumped up promises, pun intended, that we were going to get a deal done. And then Hamas takes it in and they say, we're reviewing it. And then 48 hours goes by. And then once again, they find little things that they have to change, and it turns out those little things are actually red lines in the sand, and they all full know it. And we go back to blaming Israel because it looks like Israel didn't really let it happen, because after all, the terrorists only wanted small changes.
Yeah, Edmund says in the chat that Obama was in London and Dublin. Yeah, I noticed that Marco and Richard are not on social media, so they probably didn't have the ads pop up on, do you want to pay however many hundreds of pounds to go see Obama talk in the O2? Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah, yeah, he's making good money here. Okay, so one of the things that we rely, again, we don't have insider information from the White House or from Netanyahu's inner circle, so we rely on the media. And one of the things I've seen is uh, this idea that Trump has now said, this time I'm not going to ask Bibi, I'm going to tell him. And Trump has just had his meetings with the people in the UN, with Arab leaders, with one by one people who told him the same thing at different extents, which is Israel is the bad guy. You're the only one who can stop them. Do it. And it has been said about Trump that, he often listens to the last person who spoke to him. And if it's many, many people who speak to him and say the same, yeah, that could be concerning. Marco.
Yeah, the concerning thing is from this deal and whatever we heard and read about it, is that effectively looks like Trump is now embracing a two-state solution. The only good thing he had was that he realized that you cannot have a terrorist state like the Palestinians kicking around the Middle East and causing trouble and trouble, violence and death like they've been doing for the last 80 years. And this war effectively started 80 years ago when Israel was formed. All the Arabs started attacking Israel incessantly. Every time there was a period of peace, was just a period of peace effectively determined by the Arabs who decide, okay, we need now to regroup because we've been slapped in the face too many times, and then they attack again. And this is again an attempt to let the Palestinians, let the Arab population take some breath so they can organize a new wave of attack on Israel. I mean, we talk about two-state solution, and Michael was talking about looking at history. Well, we don't need to go as far as looking at history. Just read the news from 2 years ago. Hamas was a Palestinian state. And what did they do with it? They built tunnels, they attacked Israel, and they effectively prepared October the 7th and executed it. And they're still holding hostages. So what makes you think, Mr. Trump, that suddenly the Palestinians, the poor victims of the universe, will decide not to attack Israel again? This is just again a foolish reenactment of the Good Friday Agreement. Effectively, Tony Blair managed to fudge some sort of peace in Northern Ireland, and he thinks you can do the same thing with the Palestinians. Well, these are totally different. This is a totally different kettle of fish. We are talking about a terrorist state with terrorist ideology, racist ideology, which hates the Jews, which will never appease because there's a piece of paper that says, yeah, okay, we're good guys now. It's just depressing to see that Trump has fallen for it.
And we've got the other examples, on the borders of Israel with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, haven't you? And all of the agreements made of how that region was supposed to be managed, and of course the involvement and setup of UNIFIL and all the capitulation and cooperation that they gave to Hezbollah whilst fostering anti-Jewish hate in that region. So you've got plenty of examples of this wishful thinking will not bring the results that you're after. Now, the four of us have spoken a whole number of times on this channel about how we think Gaza should be run in the future. And the fact that this deal includes a bunch of the keywords that any four of us have said in the past, like de-radicalizing or whether it's using economics and capitalism to create trade and success. You got point here, 11, point 11 on the plan, setting up an economic zone with low tariffs. Marvelous, yeah. Where'd you pull that one out of? And this, point 19, an interfaith dialogue, so you can change the mindset and the narrative of both Gazans and Israelis, of course. And of course,
Do they have a part where they make silicone integrated circuit boards as well?
No doubt, but only if they're ripping off Israeli paper.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Everything is intended to be presented as if it's both sides need to do exactly the same thing, and Israel needs to change its narrative and she needs to change its mindset towards terrorism and being threatened by people just the other side of a wall. I mean, it's ridiculous. And any one of these is just so depressing. Whether it's the UN or the Red Crescent being the international organizations set to deliver aid. I mean, take that one, for example. I mean, we've seen how endlessly aid delivered by the UN goes straight into Hamas hands. And if you're going to rebrand it as New Hamas, like Marco, mentioned there, then it's not going to change anything, is it? And you've got the examples of all these other countries that have proven that point endlessly. So going back to having 600 trucks a day of aid going in, which is what part of this involves, is simply funding the enemy and allowing them to survive, regroup, rip up the paperwork which they signed saying they were not going to hate Jews anymore, and then double down and do an October the 7th Mark II.
Michael, Trump prides himself on being the deal maker. Now, I see I saw a headline that Daniel shared with us before the show that the White House press secretary says both sides are going to leave unhappy. It's a very interesting approach to deal making where both sides leave unhappy. I mean, in business, you make a deal when you think both sides are going to leave happy. And it does raise a kind of question, what what is what is the reason where here you can't have a deal with where both sides are happy? And if you actually dig deep, you'll see, well, because one side wants to murder the other
Right.
side wants not to be murdered, and meeting halfway, both sides will end up being unhappy.
You cannot be half pregnant. No, this is you can, and Ayn Rand gets into this very well. The only time you can have win-win situations in a business deal is when both sides are negotiating in good faith and are honorable people. There's no such thing as a deal amongst thieves where people are both happy. And even when thieves do a deal that make them early profit, we both know that it's going to come back to haunt them. We all know that on the show. There is no honor amongst thieves, and there are no deals amongst thieves. This notion is absurd. And it's absurd on the face of it because it basically compromises Western values, standard Western values, in favor of bending to a death cult. It does, like all of the Western's view on this, including Trump, it ascribes a vision of living on earth to these people that are Islamists and Islamic militants and essentially are theocratic suicidologists. That they love life. They don't love life. And we have ample evidence over and over and over again. And they didn't just wake up yesterday and love life. The whole deal stinks. Now, I want to point out that there was a deal between Lebanon, the Lebanese government, and Richard did a great job bringing this up, between the Lebanese government and Israel after Israel bombed the crap out of Lebanon and Hezbollah and blew up most of Hezbollah and killed their leader and many other leaders, their main leader, Nasrallah, I believe, and their other leaders. Guess what, folks? There isn't a day going by when Hezbollah isn't violating that deal. Now, Hezbollah's argument is we were never party to the deal. So we didn't agree to it. The Lebanese government agreed to disarm Hezbollah And this has been many months, by the way. I mean, we're getting on towards a year since Israel kicked the crap out of them. But there isn't a single day that goes by when Israel doesn't have a drone or an airplane go over Lebanon and blow up a bunch of Hezbollah terrorists. Because guess what? Like you said, terrorists don't go get job retraining. And they don't want to. They're not going to. All they want to do is kill and destroy. For those idiots in the Western world who like to call Israel and America oppressors, you oppress animals that are trying to kill you. That's what you do to them. If you leave these animals alone, they create no value. We talk about the oppressed as if somehow, if they became unoppressed, they would actually come out and build new computer chips or build new ways to drill for oil that are cleaner or build new schools that teach life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They don't. None of these people do. They have no interest. And we in the West have our heads so far up our proverbial you-know-what that we keep thinking that any rational person would, of course, want to live and flourish and eat well and live in an air-conditioned place. But they don't. All they want to do is kill and destroy and oppress other people. And by the way, the last point I'll make is that the people that are supporting these the most, probably as classes, are the women and the gays, or the LGBTQ as they like to be called. How anybody could be a woman or an LGBTQ person, never mind being a Christian or a Jew, and want to support terrorists, Islamic terrorists, there's only one word for people like that. It's suicidal. And we institutionalize people that are suicidal. This is nuts. This whole framework is another sham. It was a sham with Lebanon because the only way Lebanon is still not at war with Israel is because Israel is destroying. Every time they see something, and they are spending a lot of money here with drones and cameras and satellites looking at what's going on, and they're taking them out. They don't ask questions anymore. Israel fought the war against Lebanon and against Hezbollah. Israel is not fighting the war against Gaza, which is why it's lasting too long. And this Trump plan is a joke. And the good news is, I truly believe he can say that Netanyahu's accepted it. I truly believe we will find out in the next 48 hours that Hamas has a few little issues. And those little issues will be things like, you're not getting all 48 hostages back. Blah, blah, blah. And then Trump will sort of waver because that's Trump's nature. And then Netanyahu will have to say no, because Ben-Gvir and Smotrich are going to leave the government. And I don't like those two at all, but frankly, I agree with them 100% in this case.
Yeah, actually, my next point was going to be about how it's sad. Like, I look at the fact that Ben-Gvir and Smotrich are the ones, and nothing they say could ever make me consider voting for them. But they are the ones pulling in the sort of right direction within that government. They are saying, so what we saw is Ben-Gvir saying, this can't end without Hamas being defeated and Israel controlling Gaza. That's another thing. Hamas being defeated is not the threat being eliminated. It's the people who launched the attack on October 7th being removed, and the rest of the threat, which is the people of Gaza, remaining there. Before I go to you, Marco, Daniel, you will jump in when is that going to happen at any point, the press conference? Or okay, we will have we don't have the Fox News alert graphic, although yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about that channel at the moment. But yeah, we'll do it within our budget. Marco.
Yeah, you mentioned Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. They issued a couple of statements. In theory, they briefed Netanyahu before he went to this meeting with Trump, and they both kind of said the same thing. Ben-Gvir was more about demilitarizing Hamas and making sure that the structures on the ground and underground, let's not forget the miles and miles, the hundreds of miles of tunnels under Gaza, because the Palestinians can't do anything, but they can dig tunnels and build weapons against Israel. Smotrich on the other side, on the other hand, made similar points, but also if you look at his language, it leaves open the possibility for some sort of appeasement there. So it's not as strong as I was hoping there might have been. I was hoping that the two of them might be awkward enough to make a deal impossible to reach, but clearly they left the door open for Netanyahu to um, come come to some sort of fudge with Trump. And of course, the only person here winning is Trump for 5 minutes until Hamas decides to attack Israel again, because I don't believe for a second that they would accept their own demise. And yes, they're going to get hundreds of um, terrorists back from Israeli prisons. But on the other hand, they also have their hostages, and they already fudging the story, say, oh, we lost contact with a couple of the hostages, so we won't be able to return them all. I mean, that's just a license for them to keep hostages still, and then make Netanyahu dance to their own tune, like they've done for the last 2 years, really. So the only solution here is to continue going into Gaza and disregard the number of civilian casualty, because that number just depends on how many people Hamas want to continue to sacrifice for their own survival. Because at this point, it's just Hamas trying to survive on the skin of the civilians in Gaza. And again, you talk about civilians in Gaza like we could talk about civilians in I don't know, Paris or Washington. These are combatants in civilian clothing. They don't wear uniforms. So what we mostly call civilians are, if not supporters, they're probably Hamas combatant. And we've seen number of times that doctors and journalists are still Hamas. So at what point do we get rid of Hamas? Only when we get rid of these people physically, and there's no other way. They're not going to surrender freely just because Trump wants to have a win under the belt. He's done terribly bad with Putin. He's been effectively humiliated by Putin, and now he doesn't want to come out without a deal in the Middle East as well. And that's why I think he went uh, for the kind of poison that Tony Blair and the kind of people are pushing.
Yeah, I mean, Blair's supposedly been meeting with Jared Kushner and Witkoff, and they've all been, had their paws in this, haven't they? I think that there's a solution, though, apparently, for how Gaza's going to be run temporarily or in a transition form. It's going to be run by Palestinian technocrats. Well, that's problem solved, then, isn't it? I mean, Palestinian technocrats, that is an invalid concept. That is a lie. I mean, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as Palestinian in the first place, and no such thing as a technocrat that is, completely dispassionate, impartial, objective, and gonna run this thing in anything other than a transitional period to enable terrorists to regroup, reform, and then carry on as before. And I think, and some of the other points, that we mentioned before about the amnesty for those Hamas people who choose to sign their piece of paper with saying, "I'm a good person now. Here's my photograph." But there's an alternative to that within that same clause. You can sign that piece of paper, or you can have safe passage out of the country to somewhere like Qatar, which under one of the other clauses, Israel isn't allowed to bomb anymore, and wait it out. And until you come back again, you haven't signed your piece of paper, you haven't violated your principles, even if your word counted for anything, but you can come back and then carry on as before. So, I mean, it's so full of holes. It's a piece of Swiss cheese, this toilet paper diplomacy.
Thank you, Phil, for the super chat and for once again challenging me on what I can and can't read. But I am going to read this whole thing, considering we just did a 30-minute show where we dropped the F-bomb at least a dozen times. So Phil says, Those who wish death on others who don't conform to their religion must not recognize the irony in seeing that their God ruined perfect assholes when putting tongues in their mouths. Sometimes I wish I wasn't a visual reader, but yeah, thank you for that. And okay, while we wait, and I'm pretty sure Trump knows that we're live, and that's why he's waiting until 7 p.m. UK time when he can have a press conference without us uh, calling him out on what he's doing. We will be back tomorrow, by the way. So what we don't say today, we will say tomorrow. Uh, I was just reading this, and Michael, it turns out Trump made Netanyahu call the Prime Minister of Qatar during the meeting with him sitting there. And I already saw in the Israeli media they're comparing it to when Obama did the same thing to Netanyahu with Erdogan. He made him call and apologize for defending Israel's sovereignty against the flotilla back in 2009. Um, yeah, what do you make of that? And is that Netanyahu was on Fox News yesterday, and he, let's say, didn't rule out attacking again in Qatar. What do you make of this scene? And is this something that can sort of pass? And we can understand that Netanyahu isn't really in a position. He has to choose the hill he's going to die on, and maybe that's not the one.
Yeah, look, I think the number of important friends that Israel has left. I mean, obviously, France has never been an important friend to Israel. Whether they've been a friend at all, you could argue. And clearly, most of the countries that have been, recognizing the fake state of Palestine as if it were anything but a bunch of. It's like having MS-13 gang being recognized as a part of, a break off of Mexico. It's absurd. So the problem is that Trump's really the only one who can give us the weapons. I'm right now in Tel Aviv. Give us the weapons, replenish things, work with us, and it's a very good collaboration. I mean, I'm a little bit privy to some of it, obviously not much of it, but there's an awful lot of cooperation on the military intelligence front and on the weapons development front between the two countries. And it's extraordinary what they've been able to do. This latest thing, just to bring a little bit of light to this dark discussion, and it should be dark. Israel now has this Iron Beam laser system that can basically annihilate relatively short range missiles, but it changes the equation now from thousands of, if not tens of thousands of dollars, and basically two attempts, because mostly you're taking two anti-missiles for every missile. They're about 90% accurate each, so two of them makes you 99% accurate, which is to say that 1 out of 100 get through, and that's true. Now they have these lasers that can do it for pennies, or as we like to say here, a shekel, which is worth about 33 cents US. And that's extraordinary. And that's all been done during this war. The new technology to take out drones, I've mentioned on the show before, is novel. So this is all being worked on together with the brightest minds on the planet. Instead of they're not people that are figuring out better search algorithms and better AI training. They're actually figuring out how to come up with mostly defensive weapons as well as some offensive weapons. The nice thing about Israel, of course, is that they're not, despite what everyone wants to say, a colonizer. So they're not going to go out and try to take more land, and they're not going to go out and try to destroy people around them. That said, when people mess with them, they can and should do what they're doing. Now, Netanyahu had to swallow hard. I mean, he came to Trump to try to get the next set of weapons done, the next set of money coming. Trump has to deal with a lot of the bullshit, mostly, almost exclusively from the Democratic Party here in the United States. By the way, that's the party that most Jews support, the Democratic Party, which wants to take away all offensive weapons away from Israel and let Israel just sit there and play, as Biden would call it, catch, take the win. So there's a lot of stuff going on. None of this stuff that I just mentioned has anything to do with truth or a stable future. because all of this is just bullshit. That the people who run diplomacy and run, why do you have to spend so long learning about how to do diplomacy? Because you have to figure out a way to bend reality in a way that the stupid people that voted for you or your party can believe, or you can show everybody how intricate and difficult it all is, and that's how you get things done in the quote real world. By the way, if we had to do the crap we do in diplomacy and business, we wouldn't have businesses. Because that's not the way business works, as we alluded to earlier. We wouldn't have science, we wouldn't have medicine, we wouldn't have engineering, nobody would cooperate with anyone. Because we'd all be basically building obsolescence into everything we do, and things would break all the time. That's not how you do business and everything else. But when you do statecraft, and that's what's going on right now, you knowingly negotiate with people who at their first opportunity are going to pull an AK-47 or an AR-15 or an AR-4, just to get a little bit more modern, from behind their back and blow you and your family away. And you do that and you pretend that you're very smart and that you're very insightful and blah, blah, blah. It's disgusting. Again, Jeff Bezos said reality always wins. Israel tried to do it with Hamas. They basically didn't pay attention to Gaza. They made a lot of huge numbers of mistakes. Money came in for Qatar. It was used to pay off Gaza. It was used to pay off a lot of apparently government officials we'll probably never know. And we ended up with October 7th massacre, which, by the way, could have been a lot worse than it was. So all of this shit that we're watching, and there are no other words for it, folks, that we're watching it's just a play. It's a bad off-Broadway play of people that are dancing around, wink, wink, nod, nod. All of the major players know all this crap that's going on. I would say at the last point, okay, so Israel's not allowed to fly planes over Qatar for the next year or two or three. But Mossad is involved. We may find out that the Qatarians or the Hamasians that are living in Qatar suddenly don't have hands or eyes or other body parts anymore. Israel will, of course, disavow any knowledge of it. They'll swear up and down. Everyone knows who did it. Blah, 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 blah. And the game will go on. The game could be a lot better. It could be a lot more efficient. And the game, which costs by gazillions amounts of money, could be used for the very people that it's supposed to be used for. And through all the bleeding heart idiots out there and the people with feelings all believe we should be using the money for, but no, it's being used to appease terrorists.
I want to pick up on a point you made, which is that the anti-Israel pressure on Trump is almost exclusively from the Democrats. And I agree, in Congress, it's almost exclusively from the Democrats. In terms of where things look like they're headed long term, I don't know that that's the case. So, and I think it's not. So if you look, I saw somewhere last few days, somebody posted the top 4 most listened to political podcasts in the US. 2 of them were of the so-called left. I think the New York Times podcast, and I don't remember what the other one was. 2 of them were from the so-called right. You want to guess what those were? Candace and Tucker.
Tucker.
Yeah. So yeah, people listen to them, and people tend to listen to things they agree with. Of course, it's not that everybody who listens agrees, but it is very, very dangerous and scary, the trend there, especially in the political right in the US.
Yeah, I would. So maybe just to jump in, I'm not trying to defend the right or the left. I like Anders' characterization of right and wrong, not right and left. But by the time you get that crazy on the right and that crazy on the left, it's just bent around. All you do is form a circle, which is the circle of the thugs and the mystics mixed together, the people that believe about fluff and the people that like to hold guns, and they've all come together, and it's the same story every time. The mystics and the muscles, and they're just trying to blow civilization away. First, they have to extract all the good coming out of civilization, and when that's all used up, then everybody dies, but they die last. That's the story. It's been the story for a long time. They're the same.
Yeah. I agree, and I'm afraid that's where we're headed. So Marco, I'm not a fan of Netanyahu, as I may have mentioned once or twice on this show. Uh, and yet I look at him in situations like this, and I'm like, I almost feel bad for him. It's so difficult to deal with Trump and knowing if he's gonna be like his first meeting at with Zelensky, where they both shouted, he and what's the vice president's name? Shout it at Zelensky. And then, a few months later, he's like, yeah, Ukraine should take back all the territory. Yeah, JD Vance, thanks. I just see his South Park character now when I just think of him. So yeah, uh, he doesn't know what he's going to get in the White House. He has problems at home with the coalition, as Michael mentioned. The coalition. Oh, Marco and Richard are not on at the moment because of connection issues. So I don't know if they hear what what I said. Yeah, we still see their picture, but it's frozen. So. Uh, Michael, I'm gonna ask you the same point. Basically, I look at Netanyahu in his current situation. I try to imagine what uh, what one could do. I have no idea what. I mean, I would never put myself in that position, but I have no idea how one navigates it. And yet, Netanyahu has managed to navigate that throughout, nearly 20 years with presidents from Clinton to Obama to yeah, who else was there? Trump, Biden, Trump. Is he gonna pull something out of his hat here as well?
Well, there's a saying on boards and with companies, and I sit on a fair number of boards of mostly smallish biotech companies that are, we're kind of advisors and we go in and we are the boss of the CEO together. The CEO reports to the board, but frankly, we make suggestions, and even when we make demands, and then we leave, and the team is left to do with as it will. And I think the way Netanyahu manages to scuttle a lot of this stuff and avoid it and be a little bit Teflon or a lot Teflon about it, that is to say, nothing really sticks to him, is he's a master at it for sure, like any good politician. But he basically will listen, he'll nod, he'll give lip service to it, and then he'll go out and do what he's going to do, which is going to be mostly, I believe, dependent on what his political um, pressures are based on. He's going to try not to get the right side of his government blown up. He doesn't want to lose Ben Gvir and Smotrich. They're already having a big problem with several of them, not those two exactly, but one of them and a couple of others on this whole, guess what, people that are studying the Torah actually should defend the country. And hopefully someday they'll actually work. So there's a huge amount of problem there, especially as the reservists get more and more tired because they've been at war for 2 years. Um, he's got a lot of problems internally, so he's got to figure out a way around this, and he will muck it up going forward. Now that said, I truly believe that even if we get lip service to a deal here, it will then go to Hamas, and at least twice now on the news, I've seen that Hamas has stated that they are not part of these negotiations, which means in the future they will decide whether to take it or leave it. And guess what, folks? They've had 6 times to take it before. So what if they're about to be annihilated in Gaza City? So what? They've already allowed 90% ish of their entire land mass to be destroyed. Why do we think that they're suddenly going to grow a pair of civilized brain cells and understand that they're going to die? Maybe they're not going to get to reach Allah when they die. And so maybe they should just get their act together and, like you all say, become technocrats, get re-educated, and start to form a flourishing government for the people of Gaza so that they can all enjoy a modern economy.
Um, Marco, I don't know if you heard the question that I asked before you guys dropped off, but anyway, I will repeat it. So yeah, Netanyahu is in a very, very difficult position in so many ways. Having to deal with Trump, not knowing what he's going to get, having to deal with the right wing part of his coalition, knowing what he's going to get, but not knowing what he can give back. Um, yeah, your advice to Netanyahu, who I'm sure he and Trump, the reason they're delayed for their press conferences because they're watching this show right now.
Well, we've been giving Netanyahu advice for 2 years now. If he took it in the first place, he wouldn't find himself in this position now, because by now he would have taken over Gaza, wiped out Hamas, and dealt with it. And of course, he's the prime minister of a state, of a nation, who needs to be proficient in defending itself, because it's been under constant attack for the last 80 years since it's been formed. So how is it possible that you allow this kind of latitude to your enemies? How is it possible that still, 2 years after the worst attack on Israel, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust, are we in the situation? I mean, there shouldn't be a Gaza now to talk about. But what can you tell him now? He's been dragging the thing so long. He's been dilly-dallying, foot forward, two behind, two backwards, and of course now it's a mess. So. You have to deal with the few cards you're left with. But as Michael was pointing out, if I were him, I would make sure that whatever happens after the deal, they keep carrying on getting rid of these monsters, because the only good Gazan leader, the only good Hamas guy is a dead Hamas guy. Unfortunately, that's the situation, and I hope the end of the former Iranian president will be followed by many, many more. And of course, Israel is the state that just pushed back the threat of a Iranian nuclear holocaust, because I can guarantee you the Iranians haven't given up enriching uranium, or at least plans to do it. They already started rebuilding the missiles facilities that were damaged by Israel a few months ago. And they're already effectively on a diplomatic spot with the EU, who's trying to appease them and get them to reach a deal, because they do not want to give up the production of uranium. They know that once they got enough uranium to at least threaten the nuclear weapon, production of nuclear weapon, they'll be laughing, aren't they? And of course, Iran is the big name missing from any of these agreements. At no point the agreements may show that there is no Iranian presence in Gaza or in the West Bank, which is one of the main points that has to be addressed, because it's been Iran that's been pushing and funding Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, and directly attacking Israel themselves. I mean, we've seen. I don't understand. President Trump has been victim of a Iranian-inspired or organized attempt to his life. Iran has been proven to be doing all sorts of acts of sabotage and intelligence to try to influence people using social media. I mean, we've seen it, we've got the proof, and still they are treated like people you can deal with. I'm afraid you cannot force the victims of the hate and violence that Hamas and the Palestinians have been given to humankind, and specifically to Israelis, and let them get away with it effectively. Just the offer of amnesty to the Hamas leader is a literal, okay, you kill Jews, okay, you're fine, well done. Move on. The same as recognize the Palestinian state. What kind of response is that? You have a bunch of terrorists who want to form a state. They kill people, and you reward them with the very state that they're trying to build. I mean, that's just honestly, if I didn't know for sure we are in this universe, I would think this is an alternative one.
Yeah. And it's too late, frankly, to give Netanyahu advice. It's too late to bring reason to an argument that or a discussion where you've got the erratic and the irrational on the other side of the table. But it's not just about the character of Donald Trump or the particular PR situation of being embarrassed in the Oval Office. The bigger problem is the folly of past pragmatism as well, which has got it, has infected everything, all of the situation we're in at the moment. And that includes, I mean, you can see that the nature of past cock-ups has infected some of the clauses proposed in this deal. How the West dealt with countries like Iraq and Libya in the past has informed the need to find some way of training a police force in Gaza after the end of the war by creating what they've called the International Stabilization Force. Now, we know that all problems are solved with a three-word slogan. That's all you need. And frankly, number two could be rebranded as Build Back Better, because that's what redeveloping for the benefit of its own people, whatever that means, Gaza is really they're claiming they're going to do there. So it's shallow, empty. It relates to previous problems, and of course, it's too late to be discussing a solution. As Marco pointed out, the solution was force earlier in response to the initiation of force by Hamas and the Gazans on October the 7th. And without that, the only time that Israel has moved the dial in favor of justice and an answer to this conflict is when it's carried out things like the pager attack, when it's carried out things like together with Donald Trump on his better days, destroying the Iranian nuclear facilities, for example, maybe not sufficiently, but significantly. All those are the things that have actually moved things forward, not this pontificating or treating it as a reality show performance in the White House for the sake of a headline or a high five to yourself in the mirror afterwards.
And of course, we've seen how well the international peacekeeping works, doesn't it? We've seen how UNIFIL was looking the other way while Hezbollah was digging under their positions in order to attack Israel. I mean, it's laughable to think that the second time around this will work. I mean, we've seen the Oslo Agreement that ended up in October the 7th, ended up in all the kind of terrorist attacks that we see every day in the West Bank. So why is this time better? Why is this time gonna work? I mean, it's just laughable to think that people are so naive to believe that.
This past Thursday, Pete North was arrested in his home in Yorkshire for sharing an anti-Palestinian meme. Pete North he joined me on today's episode of the Daily Objective where I interviewed him. In case you missed it, make sure you go back, watch that, share it. More important than most, I mean, you should share everything we do, but especially that episode, and of course, like it and comment for the algorithm. Michael, where can people find you?
Michael Kaufman, 2Fs on LinkedIn.
Marco Richard?
Well, we're probably gonna be in a prison very soon if things carry on like this in Britain.
Yeah, but if we're not, you can still watch the material we made for the Briefly Objective, sister channel to this. Links in the description below. Check it out, please.
But they let visitors in prison, don't they, in the UK?
What will you come and see us, Michael?
Absolutely. I
Fantastic.
just have to mind the gap, yes.
I'm Razi Ginsburg on X, where I think the last thing I posted, or one of the last things, was me retweeting Pete North's tweet. So yeah, I might join you, Marco and Richard. If not, I will see you soon on the reality show, which returns tomorrow along with the Daily Objective. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Have a good night. Thanks, bud.